Hey guys, since we missed a couple classes due to me being sick, I just wanted to go over some of your research paper requirements. Sorry if I still sound a little bit congested, but hopefully this will help. And I've also posted these PowerPoint slides to Sakai under resources in the spring PowerPoint slide folder. So like the Baglioni readings say, which are really helpful in learning how to structure the research paper, this isn't a typical research paper where you're reiterating facts or saying if you agree or disagree with something and talking about, who, what, where, and when. This is more about the why and the how of a testable problem. So just like we learned about with Popper, we're actually going to be testing hypotheses, which we'll learn how to in the upcoming classes that we have. And you're going to be taking an original idea of yours, something that you're passionate about, something that you'd like to investigate further, and seeing if one thing really does cause another in the hypothesis that you create, and actually testing it out with data. So like we talked about with scientific knowledge, it'll be something that's explanatory, something that you can test, and something that you can prove or disprove. So of course, when you're looking for a research question, like Baglioni says, you want it to be something that's interesting and important, but remember, we also want it to be simple or parsimonious. So you want it to be doable, not something that's the level of a dissertation, not something that has a bunch of different causes or variables or explanations. You want to test one thing against one other thing, how one thing causes or potentially causes another thing. Sometimes people pick questions that are timely, stuff that can be involving politics or society nowadays. And of course, you want to remember that you want this to be something empirical that's based on fact and something that can be observable. Baglioni talks about questions and research questions being theory advancing, public policy oriented, or conceptual. So those are things that you can keep in mind as well. And remember, essentially, you're developing a claim and then you're evaluating whether or not that claim is true based on evidence. When you go to pick a research question, I'd recommend trying out a bunch of different places to kind of inspire you and also to help you along with your literature review and background research when you're working on your literature review. So let's kind of look at some of these places right now. Pew Research Center is always a fantastic place to go to. You can see up at the top that they have a ton of different categories that you can choose from. They also have data sets. So if you look under their data sets and if you sign up for free, you can actually download one of their data sets to use for your hypothesis, and we can get into that a little bit later. But just simply looking at Pew Research articles alone may inspire you in terms of what you actually want to research. Whether it's about a certain policy, immigration, the previous or the upcoming presidential election. There's a ton of stuff on here that could really inspire you in terms of what you want your research paper to be about. The Upshot New York Times is also a great place to look. It's a great data journalism site, which was actually inspired by 538. Probably a lot of you guys are familiar with Nate Silver and 538. Again, a ton of great articles on both of these data journalism sites where their whole purpose is to play with data and test data about different theories and different things going on in the political scene and in the news. So definitely great places to look if you want to be inspired for maybe what to ask or what you'd like to test in your hypothesis. When you're looking more into your literature review, I'd also highly, highly recommend, strongly encourage going to Rutgers University Library resources, especially looking at JSTOR. JSTOR has access to tons and tons of articles that will help you with your literature review. And remember, you do need articles that are scholarly articles, not absolutely nothing pulled off something like Wikipedia. But JSTOR is an excellent place for scholarly articles. So is something called Public Opinion Quarterly. And this is the journal of actually the National Organization of Survey Researchers called APOR, the American Association for Public Opinion Research, has a lot of great articles in there with hypotheses that are testable by data sets. And finally, you can go and use Google Scholar if you want to test out, if you want to look for articles that maybe test hypotheses that are similar to your own, or just type in a subject like, politics, let's say political participation. And then, it'll come up with any scholarly articles on Google that are related to political participation. So these are all great resources to go to when you need to pick a research question, and then when you want to actually research for your lit review for your research paper. Associated with researching the literature component of it and the lit review component of it, you could also use these citation tools that I mentioned over here. I don't care what format you're citing in, as long as you keep a consistent format. And you can use a variety of tools that can help you organize, but that's something that's certainly not required. My biggest tip is always look at the author's works cited list in anything that you're reading, because they'll point you to some other good articles that'll be helpful and definitely related to the topic at hand, because obviously they're using similar sources to research a similar subject. When we go into annotated bibliographies, which you'll have due halfway through the semester, those annotated bibliographies, which Baglioni describes, are simply bibliographies that have not only the citations, but a little explanation about each of the citations right after them and why they're important to your paper. Now, your paper formatting is all described both in the syllabus as well as on Sakai under further details. It's 8 to 10 pages, double spaced, 1-inch margins. Mainly, you'll have an introduction, a literature review, a hypothesis, and your analysis and results. And you will have to show your SPSS output, which we'll get into in future classes, within your paper, within your appendix. Always remember, guys, that plagiarism is a really bad idea. Like Baglioni says, and this cannot be said enough, you have to attribute any ideas and information to the original authors. It doesn't matter if it's not a quote. If it's the author's idea, you have to mention that author in parentheses, just like I do here with Baglioni. And of course, if you're directly lifting text, that text has to be quoted. There's some information here on your literature review to help you form your literature review, which we'll talk about in classes to come. But again, Baglioni's a great source. And then as for important deadlines, you guys should have completed 2 of these already, finding a topic worksheet and generating questions worksheet to help get ideas flowing. Your next assignments are going to be formulating a concept. We'll learn more about concepts on Monday, and your hypothesis assignment due on March 11th. So these are the next 2 assignments that are really going to help you hone in on what your actual hypothesis will be. This should be 328. We'll change that. You'll have your 5 citations due on March 28th. You'll have your annotated bibliography due on 4/4. And then your final project presentations, which we'll talk a little bit more about as the semester goes on, will be the last 3 classes of the semester, with your paper due that Friday. And we'll also be working on a lot of the analysis for your paper during class time. So there'll be plenty of time built in and plenty of steps along the way to help you along with your research paper. I also have a folder on our Sakai site under resources that has a bunch of information in there about your research paper, along with examples of other research papers in there. So if you go to research paper final project materials, just kind of have some excess worksheets in there that you already completed. The example papers are incredibly helpful. The final paper grading areas will be updated, so I'll let you guys know. I'll keep you posted, but at least this will get you an idea. And there's a couple of data sets sprinkled throughout in there, and how to download data sets from Pew, and some stuff from the General Social Survey, GSS, in there as well. Thanks, guys. I hope this was helpful, and best of luck on the papers. I know you'll do great, and we'll talk more about them as we go on. Thanks.